Use draft and shell tools. In this video, we'll use draft and use shell. In Fusion 360, we want to carry on with our direct modeling design. We've already made some adjustments using direct modeling, and now we want to explore some additional modification tools, namely shell and draft. Draft can be added at the time of a feature creation, for example, during an extrude. But there are times when you might want to add draft after the fact, for example, on complex geometry, or if a design needs an additional amount of angle that wasn't captured in the original feature. What we want to do with this design is we want to explore drafting and shelling the design. To do this, I'm first going to take a look at these two holes. I'm going to select them and use Modify and Delete to remove them from the design. I also am going to take a look at the fillet radii on these corners. I'm going to select those two and hit Delete to remove them. Then I'm going to take a look at the two larger fillets and press Delete to remove those as well. When we're adding draft to a design, sometimes adding it to a corner that has a filleted edge can be problematic, so it's a good idea to make sure that you add your filleted edges after the draft, just to be sure that the geometry is as intended. Now that we've taken it back, the first thing that I want to do is I want to shell this design. From the Modify menu, we're going to select Shell. When we're using shell, we need to select faces that we want to remove. In this case, I want to rotate the model around. I'm going to select the back face, the bottom face, as well as the front face. Using my view cube, I'll go to more of an isometric view, and then I can either use the on-screen arrow manipulator or enter in nominal input for the inside thickness. For this, I'm going to select 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch and say OK. What we've done is we've removed the geometry on the inside, keeping a consistent wall thickness of 1/8 of an inch. This can be extremely helpful when you're creating plastic parts, but oftentimes the plastic parts need a specific draft angle on the inside and the out. So what we're going to do is take the timeline marker and we're going to roll it back, holding it down with our left mouse button before the shell. Then we're going to use Modify and Draft. I'm going to add draft to some of these walls. For example, these three walls here. And then notice that the first selection is actually our pull direction. We want to make sure that our pull direction is going to be this top face. We have an on-screen manipulator that allows us to drive the angle, noting that because we selected the top face, we're keeping this edge consistent and we're tapering the faces down. I'm going to add 30 degrees of draft. That's a bit extreme, but this will help us identify the draft when we flip the part and we view the shell. We're going to say OK, and then we'll take our timeline marker and we'll roll it to the end. If we rotate this around, you can see that the draft is included inside of the bottom of the part because the shell again keeps that consistent wall thickness. Just because we use these tools, such as shell and draft, doesn't automatically make a part manufacturable. You will need to make sure that you use best practices and design rules as well as the tooling that you have available to make sure that designs can actually be manufactured. Since we'll be taking a look at specific parts later on in different videos, we're not going to be focusing on the manufacturability of this part. But it is important to note that is a consideration whenever we begin adjusting geometry. From here, let's make sure that we save this design before moving on.